Hearken unto this, O Job, stand still and consider the wondrous works of God. Dost thou know when God disposed them, and caused the light of his cloud to shine? Dost thou know the balancing of the clouds and the wondrous works of him which is perfect in knowledge? How thy garments are warm, when he quieted the earth by the south wind. Hast thou with him spread out the sky, which is strong, and as a molten looking glass? Teach us what we shall say unto him, for we cannot order our speech by reason of darkness. Shall it be told him that I speak? If a man speak, surely he shall be swallowed up. And now men see not the bright light which is the clouds, but the wind passeth and cleanseth them. Fair weather cometh out of the north, with God is terrible majesty. Touching the Almighty, we cannot find him out. He is excellent in power and in judgment and in plenty of justice. He will not afflict.
Okay, so, and in the last verses, men do not therefore fear him. He respecteth not any that are wise of heart. In this section, Job is going through his trial, his period of suffering. And like in all things that you study, you want to study what's going on at that time, who's speaking and who's being spoken to. So this is his friend Elihu, and of course, whenever you see the L, you want to pay close attention. Even the who is a divine name, like Yahuwah, but Elihu. And Elihu is trying to give him justification as to why he's going through, why Job is going through what he's going through. So, in that sense, it's important to kind of recognize that a lot of times it's almost like when you go through a death in the family and you have that person who comes up and says, well, the person's in a better place. They have no clue what they're talking about, but they're trying to now give justification as to why the Most High is moving the way the Most High is moving, or why life is just unfolding as it is. So Elihu is coming with his own level of what he considers to be the reason. And what he's basically saying, it's sort of a bias effect from a psychological perspective. Because what he's basically saying that anytime we go through something, the reason we go through it is corrective, or it's medicative, or there's some level of counseling in it. So it's like when we go through something rough and then someone says, well, everything happens for a reason. Sometimes the reason is that you did something stupid and now you have to enjoy your stupid prize. So trying to superimpose what we consider to be placating, or we consider to be consoling over what the works of the Most High is doing, is what Elihu is doing in this moment. So then when we go to verse 38, we get Job's response. Let's start at 38:1. And actually, it's not even Job's response. At 38:1, we have the Most High now speaking to Job. So it's like someone saying, oh, this is what the Most High is doing. And then the Most High says, let me tell you for myself. So it starts with, then Yahuwah answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, who is this that darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge? So basically, who is this who's trying to speak for me? Has no clue what they're talking about. And in many senses, that's like a form of an invocation. You keep trying to speak for the Most High, and eventually the Most High says, tell you what, I'll speak for myself. It's very similar to, let's say, what like Moshe or Moses went through when he was raised up. He was a Messiah that was raised up, that the Most High raised up in order to free his people. And when he went to Pharaoh, the situations that Pharaoh went through were not necessarily situations that the Most High didn't put anything on Pharaoh. Pharaoh was going to experience his own demise anyway, because one of the most important things at that time was the name. What is your name? Who should I say? And the name that he gave Moses is I is. You know, and we eventually transformed that to he is, right? Which is an imperfect tense, but it made more sense than Moses going around and saying I is says, let my people go, right? So the reason why that name was so important and kind of making that stamp and saying I'm speaking for this, because there were other gods at that time. So to be able to say, no, I'm speaking, Yahuwah is saying this. You know, yes, we are acknowledging that these other Necharu exist, so forth and so on, but the name is a critical piece, right? So in this instance, the Most High is saying, you know what, you're misrepresenting what I'm doing. You don't know what you're talking about. So let me, for my own name and for my own mind, share what's happening. So that's 38. Can we go through that? 38, starting at 38 and 1?
Sure. Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, who is this that darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge? Gird up now thy loins like a man, for I will demand of thee, and answer thou me. Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare if thou hast understanding. Who hath laid the measures thereof, if thou knowest? Or who hath stretched the line upon it? Whereunto are the foundations thereof fastened? Or who laid the cornerstone thereof? When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted of joy.
Okay, let's stop there. So obviously in this response, what he's saying is, you're speaking for me. And this is almost a response that can be given to any religious figure. You weren't there. You know, so even when I speak about our new literature and people seek to ask me things very directly, I don't know. So everything, most that we're sharing in terms of these teachings, when we start speaking about Yahuwah and we start speaking about, as was referenced here, the sons of God. Now, the sons of God are who? I covered this in the Bereshit lesson. Various deities, right. These are the various deities of creation. So that's, again, further proof that there is more than one deity. So when he's saying, you know, in 7, when the morning stars sang together, who's the morning stars? Lucifer and Yahushua, right? Sang together. So when there was unity. So when the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God, or all the sons of Yahuwah, so when all the sons of Elohim shouted for joy. So it's kind of like saying the sons of Marley, right? So when he's saying the sons of Elohim, he's saying the family of gods, not necessarily one person and their sons, but the sons of Elohim. So when all of these entities were there, and Yahushua and who you perceive to be his arch enemy were singing together, you were not there. So how could you possibly understand what I've put together? Then when he says, where did I fasten the world to? How did I put the world together, and what, like basically like how we're here on a retreat and we stake down our tents. Where did I put the stakes for the world? You haven't even gotten that far. And you understand, you just learned how to fly planes recently, you know, so you haven't even gotten so far to even figure out how I suspended the globe. But you think you can speak for me? You know, so it's almost incredulous. You know, it's almost a situation where he's like, the nerve of you. Like, who darkeneth counsel with words without knowledge? Like, there's an opportunity for counsel. What's the counsel that Job is going through? His experience. I'm showing him something, and then you darkeneth it. Now, the darkeneth is the important part.
Or who shut up the sea with doors when it brake forth, as if it had issued out of the womb? When I made the cloud the garment thereof, and thick darkness of swaddling band for it, and break up for it my decreed place, and set bars and doors, and said, hitherto shalt thou come, but no further, and he shall thy proud waves be stayed. Hast thou commanded the morning since thy days, and caused the daybreak to know his place, that it might take hold of the end of the earth, that the wicked might be shaken out of it. It is turned as clay to the seal, and thy stand as a garment. And from the wicked their light is withholden, and the high arm shall be broken. Hast thou entered into the spring of the sea, or hast thou walked in the search of the depth? Have the gates of the death been opened upon thee, unto thee, or hast thou seen the doors of the shadow of death?
Hast thou perceived the breadth of the earth? Declare if thou knowest it all. So he's giving them a series of questions, and he's saying, give me your answer. If that's what it is, tell me right now. Right? And then saying that thou shouldest take it to the bond thereof, and that thou shouldest know the paths to the house thereof. Knowest thou it because thou wast then born, or because the number of thy days is great? So he's saying, do you actually know these things because you were there, like you're just that old when I built the world, when I built the ocean, when I built the sea, right? Now, this is an important thing, like I was saying, even in dealing with Pharaoh. When Moses was sinned, and he was saying, all right, look, Yahuwah, or I am, he is saying, or he is becoming, is saying it's time that his people go forth. And, it's an important thing when you think about where things are coming from, because in that moment, this human who's had a very finite existence up until this moment now challenges the Lord of creation. No. Who are you talking about? What? Who's this? Nah, I ain't doing it. Now you got to think about the science of that, because in that moment, Moshe or Moses is the mouthpiece for the Most High. So for Pharaoh to say, no, you looking in the face of all creation and say, I'm going to do what I want. And in that moment, what does the Most High say? All right, allow me to introduce myself, basically. Let's see if you can do what I do. Try these plagues on for size. Try the death of your firstborn on for size. And then one of the things that's constantly said, and all will know my name is. All will know my name is. Now, why is that so significant? Because we have to be able to differentiate when we're saying Lord, right? It's very similar to when we say God, or even when we say Lord, knowing that it's a title. It would be like if one of our youth here always referred to their parent as parent. At some point, what's wrong with you, man? So very similar when we use terms like God. What God? Even Lord. Which Lord? Lord of the house? The landlord? All these different deities that could reign as Lord. So in this moment, Yahuwah is coming forth and saying, don't worry about all that. This is my name. Work with this. This is my name. So now he's carving a path that becomes very clear, right? Now, I'm going to get into why this is important. So when we go a little further down and we get to Job 38:23, he says, which I have reserved against thee the time of trouble, against the day of battle and war. By that way is the light parted, which scattereth the east wind upon the earth, who hath divided a water course for the overflowing of waters, or a way for the lighting of thunder, to cause it to rain on the earth where no man is, on the wilderness wherein there is no man, to satisfy the desolate and waste ground, and to cause the bud of the tender herb to come forth, right? And basically he's still saying, which is beautiful, he's outlining creation. So he's saying, in case you think some of this stuff that you are surrounded by happened on its own, and I'm only the deity of a specific thing or specific people, let me be clear. I did everything that you're able to witness and view right now. So there's nowhere you can run from me in this moment and say, but I have this over here, because it's all mine, right? So now what I want to focus on for a moment is the concept of light, right? You know, and again, he's saying, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do that? And there's so many things that he's outlining that he's saying, basically, you don't have the ability to do. Now, when we get to 38 and 30, he says, the waters are hid as with a stone, and the face of the deep is frozen, which specifies that there is hidden water and hidden existence somewhere that we have not experienced yet. Almost like an inner earth or hollow earth. Here's an important piece, or important as well, I should say, where he says, canst thou bind the sweet influence of Pleiades or loose the bands of Orion? Okay? Important, because now we know right now that Yahuwah is speaking. So when people say, oh, we don't deal with astrology, we don't deal with stars, and we don't do, that's not true, right? So he's just now right there citing constellations. Now, Pleiades is considered to be a cluster of 7 stars, right? So there's, when he says, can thou bind the sweetness of Pleiades, what he's saying in that moment is that, or I'll interpret it as that, because again, he's saying, don't speak for me. I said what I said. So that's why oftentimes when you hear me, I say, well, it can be interpreted as this. But I don't know why the Most High said what the Most High said, why those words were selected, anything. I wasn't there then, and I certainly wasn't there even before, right? But the sweetness of Pleiades is light. So to say, can you bind the sweetness of Pleiades, is to say, can you stop light from happening? Now the light is what? Good. Can you stop goodness? Can you stop spirit from coming forth? Can you stop the Most High Spirit from coming forth? And again, as we have these astronomical references, there's an astrological interpretation. He says, or loose the bands of Orion or Orion. Of course, a lot of times we say Orion because it just seems like it should flow like that. But it's really Ion. Anybody know what means? Light. Exactly. Is light. And then you have ion, which is a connection to what term?
An atom. Is it an atom?
Anu. So ion or Anu is what? The light of Anu, or the light of heaven. So Anu and Orion is also Anu or Uranus. So he's saying, can you loose the bands of Uranus? Can you loose the bands of heaven? Now, why would there be bands around heaven? Because I have entities there that you don't know anything about. I'm constantly holding things back. So whereas you thinking you're getting the fullness of something, I got worlds underneath the water that you don't even know about. And then I have entities in heaven that I haven't even unleashed on you. And then there's a light that's constantly coming forth from this cluster of stars that you can't even stop. But somehow you can speak for me. Even though I didn't send you to speak for me, you can speak for me, right? So I want to get into for a second that concept of binding or restraining light, really quick. Because of course, when we're speaking about the light, we're talking about the Christ consciousness of the world. That's when you hear those terms for light, like when the Most High said, I'm truth, the way, and the light. No man comes to the Father but by me. But he's also referencing the light, or like when we're told, ye are the light of the world, right? So that light is saying, ye are the Christ consciousness of this space. No one can stop that. So there's no one that we can reference and say, they're not allowing us to be divine. They're not allowing us to be light. Because they cannot, just like they couldn't stop a star system from coming forth, they can't stop the system that's within us from coming forth. And you can have a system of light, or you can have a system of dark. And he's saying within you, I planted a system of light that cannot be stopped, right? So really quick, we'll go to and again, I want to say this is also the importance of why the stars are named the way they're named. It's not happenstance. So if we go to the influence even, right? So when we have binding the sweet influences of Pleiades or loose the bands of Orion, understanding that Pleiades is also a cluster that exists within Taurus, right? And when we have a restraining of the Taurus, in that sense, what we're doing, we're restraining ego. So he's saying, I'm letting some light come through, but even within the light, there's something that I have to hold back, right? Now, is your mind even complex enough to understand that? When, for the most part, you just know off and on, either there's light or there's no light. But could you possibly fathom that even within the light, there's still refinement that I still got to hold this bull of Taurus back, even when inside of that light entity, right? In Job 38 and 32, he said, canst thou bring forth Mazzaroth in his season, or canst thou guide Arcturus with his sons? You know, now again, we're speaking about star constellations, Mazzaroth, Arcturus. And, you know, this usually Mazzaroth in our ancient terms, that's what we call the zodiac constellations, right? So whereas we might just say constellations, he's saying Mazzaroth is the whole circuit board. Because when you look up in the sky, you see the stars, you're looking at a circuit board. You know, they're placed there and they're energetically bouncing and streaming off each other, just like electricity travels through a PCB circuit or a copper circuit board. Same exact way, right? So he's saying basically you hold back that electricity that I've placed up in the sky. No. And with Arcturus, that's one of the brightest stars in the constellation of Virgo, right? Virgo is the top. You know, when you're dealing with the names, like I said, your naming constellation. We have children that are in Genesis or Bereshit that are named Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, or Gad rather, Issachar, Zebulon, Dinah, Yuya or Yosef, and Benjamin or Benjamin. And even with Yaqub or Jacob, he names his sons and daughter after the 12 zodiac, right? So we have Levi and Reuben, who were twins. What's the twins in the zodiac? Gemini. We have Dinah or Naphtali, she was the virgin, who is Virgo, right? So we have this influence of the stars that are coming through. So the complexity of that wisdom, or like where we have in the constellation with the hydra. Anybody familiar with the hydra?
Does that mean you could have said off it goes back to?
Mm-hmm. Good. Anything else you know?
No.
Okay, no problem. You know, there's an ecliptic path of the sun, and there's several paths. The third path of that sun is covered by the tail of the hydra, right? And the hydra is what we call the crooked serpent. And what a crooked serpent represents is a serpent that's fleeing, that's running, right? When snakes move, they don't just, right? There's a curve. So anytime you see that reference to like a crooked serpent, even a crooked staff, what that represents is light flooding out darkness. The darkness is being pushed out. The serpent is having to move, right? So for instance, we use the light reference for a second. Just pulling scripture. So we'll say Luke 17 and 20. And this is when Yahshua was speaking. And when he was demanded of the Pharisees when the kingdom of Yah should come, he answered and said, the kingdom of Yah cometh not with observation. 21 says, neither shall they say, lo here or lo there, for behold, the kingdom of Yah is within you. So even in that, we're speaking about the internal influences of not only the constellations, but the internal influence of this particular energy, where you're looking for, is it coming that way, you're coming from that direction? There's a refinement that happens inside, and that's when the kingdom comes forth, through the internal refinement. That's releasing the light, right? But of course, within our finite minds, we can't figure out, well, how do I release? What parts of the light do I release? What heavenly host should be held and not released right now? What weapons will I use later? This, so forth, and the third. So there's a confirmation, of course, that the kingdom of Yah is not observed through physicality, but the kingdom of Yah is observed through spiritual eye, right? So spiritual eye a lot. So we could study the same things, right? We could all study the same exact information, but without spiritual eye, you'll never see the reward of what you studied. You may have built the kingdom right and don't even realize it because you're not looking with the right eye. So Luke 11:34 is another scripture. The light of the body is the eye. Therefore, when the eye is single, thy whole body also is full of light. But when thine eye is evil, the body is also full of darkness. What's a single eye? First eye. So as opposed to looking at either this or it's that, or looking from the point of duality, once I'm pointing from the point of duality, I'm functioning from evil. What is evil? Dysfunction. So the moment I'm looking with my physical eye, I'm already functioning from dysfunction. The moment. You think about that in mate selection. When I forget that the things I'm looking for in this mate fade, this person's cute, this person's this person's that. How do those relationships usually turn out? They don't turn out. Exactly. Because I'm now functioning from evil, and evil is defined as dysfunction. So now I'm using a dysfunctional reference as opposed to using the light of single eye, right? So, and that single eye, it does one thing that's important. Single eye perceives Yah. And that's like the easiest thing you need to know. People will give you poems about my third eye. And the easiest thing you need to know is that your third eye can perceive Yah through meditation. That's it. Now think about the power of seeing Yah through meditation. I'm walking down the street. Should I go left or should I go right? Well, where's Yah at? Because that may be the difference between getting robbed, getting hit by a car, whatever. I'm approaching someone who wants to be my friend. Can I see Yah or not? If I cannot see Yah, what am I doing? Performing evil. If I can see Yah, then I'm performing righteousness. So your first eye does one thing. That pineal one thing allows you to see the kingdom of Yah. Because the kingdom of Yah is within. So if it's within me, it's within you. So if I'm looking with the spiritual eye, I can see the kingdom of Yah inside of you. Or if I see no kingdom of Yah, and I'm looking, okay, that's not where I live. I'm not there. So I can scan the room quick with that proper eye. Okay, I see it there, Yah's there, Yah's there. Okay, cool. Right? So that's the main thing you want to understand. Your evil or your dysfunctional part of your eye is your inability to shun matter. That's your dysfunction. When you cannot shun, so whenever you hear a reference in scripture about evil eye, it's someone who cannot look away from matter. Okay, that's the difference. The single eye, the righteous eye, sees Yah, sees the kingdom of Yah. The unrighteous eye or the evil eye can't see anything but matter. And that puts them in darkness. So the inability to see beyond matter is dark. Okay? So we go by like Job 26:13, which we read earlier. By his spirit he hath garnished the heavens, his hand hath formed the crooked serpent. Now, when he's referring to the crooked serpent in this particular scripture, he's referring to the hydra, which is that constellation. And the hydra, it's the longest constellation in our sky. It takes 7 hours to go across. So if you ever want to, you got a long time to look at it. But the term crooked in Hebrew is actually fleeing, and reading that, when you understand about the hydra and you look at the constellation, the hydra is being pounced upon by Leo. Anybody know what, or can you guess maybe what Leo represents in our biblical sense?
Justice.
Good, yeah, somewhat, yeah. What else we got? What else we got? The kingdom. What are Leos like?
Attention.
They like the spotlight, they like attention. What are they like as people? egoic, generous. Yeah, they are generous actually, even though, yeah, with all the other stuff. What else?
I said demanding.
They're very demanding. Anybody know why?
It's all about them.
Why?
Because
Good. Royalty. It's all about them because they're so filled with the spirit of Yah. They think they are Yah.
So is that lion, Judah?
That's the lion, right? So the Leo, when the Leo is pouncing on the head of the hydra, or sometimes you'll see the lion in certain even insignia chasing the bird,
yeah.
right? That bird or that hydra represents the darkness of humanity, and the Leo represents the spirit of Yah coming forth so strong that is chasing humanity away. So when you're around a Leo, they make everything about them. Why? Because Yah just told us in Job, everything is me. You see? So sometimes we may look at a Leo and say, oh man, they're annoying, they don't even talk about themselves and that. But you got to be able to say, well, how do I balance? Now, on the opposite side of that is the Aquarius. So you have the Leo energy, everything is about me, and the Aquarius is everything is about y'all. I want to know you. I'm floating through each conversation. I'm here, I'm there, and there. And of course, there's the wisdom of humanity there with Aquarius, whereas with the Leo, it's just I'm just moving off of the instinct and the knowing that I'm Yah. You see, so in understanding some of these things, we start to understand why certain images are used even within scriptures. Why did the Most High come from, or Yahushua come from that chain of Judah? Because the Leo is going to bring forth Yah. You see, that lion energy. And the lion energy is going to do what? Chase away the serpent energy. So as we come into the full bearing of our Christ consciousness, what we're doing at that point is that Pleiadian light that's being released to the point where there's less matter. If there's less matter within our thinking, within our conduct, there's less what? Less dysfunction, less evil. So the more Yah that comes forth, the more there's a singleness of I. Right? We're taught the opposite. The more you're saying I, the more you're getting away from Yah. No, because I becomes who was sent by Moses in the beginning. What was the name? I is. So the more we get to the I is this, I is this, I is this, the closer we're getting to our spiritual path. The further away we find ourselves in situations where we got 5 million talents, and because we can do so many things, we can't figure out what to do with our life. I could be this, I could be that, I could work for myself, I could work for this, I could work for that. But you find with all of that, you're usually a very dysfunctional person. Because you're like the hydra. Hydra, I got many heads. I got many different things that I can do. But when you come to the point where I'm functioning from single I is what? I is what I is. That one thing, I is what? One. You see what I'm saying? So that's the science of really being able to pull your astrological understandings into your scriptural understandings and really just into your general divine understandings. You don't have to throw away the astrology, but for the most part, a lot of times we don't understand the astrology. And as a result, we're living only under the archetype energy of that astrology. So does that mean that we should all strive to be Leo? No, not at all. Not at all. Because Leo needs balance, because you can't, at 6 years old, jump out and say, I is. Though a 6-year-old Leo does act like that. So you have to go through this elliptical experience, like the Hydra goes through elliptical experience. On that third rotation, it blocks out Leo. It blocks the sun. You know, and says, no, we're something. Let me see what I am without Christ. Let's see what the world is without Christ so that I can appreciate the presence of Christ or Yahushua.